Greenway Irrigation Systems uses job order costing and applies manufacturing overhead to individual jobs using predetermined overhead rates. In the fabrication department, overhead is applied based on machine hours, right? We'll make sure we take note of that. Machine hours is our driver in the fabrication department. And the installation department, it applies on the basis of direct labor. At the beginning of the current year, management made the following estimates. All right, so we have direct labor, direct overhead, direct labor, manufacturing overhead, machine hours, and direct labor hours. Production of 5,350 linear feet of irrigation system for the Thompson Orchards, which is job number 399, was started and completed in March. Here are some additional details about that job. Cost of materials used, direct labor hours, machine hours. Determine the overhead rate that should be used for each department in applying the overhead cost to job 399. And then what was the total job cost of 399 and what was its cost per linear foot? All right. So in order to get started, we first need to come up with these overhead rates for the fabrication and the installation department. So the first thing is what we're allocating is this manufacturing overhead, right? So this is the money that's getting allocated. And in the fabrication department, we use machine hours. And in the installation department, we use direct labor hours. All right. So we'll just write this out just like we have done in the past. We'll say the 600,000 divided by the 8,000 and then the 180,000 divided by the 15,000. All right. So 600,000 divided by the 8,000 is $75 per machine hour. And then 180 divided by the 15 is $12 per direct labor hour. Okay, so we have two departments, fabrication and installation. Let's do overhead first. So we're trying to put the overhead into these departments. For the fabrication department, we use machine hours. So our machine hours are 60. So we're going to say 60 times the 75, right? So 60 times 75 is 4,500. And then in the installation department, we use the direct labor hours, 450. So we're going to say 450 times 12. All right, 450 times 12. I get $5,400. Then we need to include the direct materials and the direct labor. So direct material, cost of materials used in the job, 7,200 and 3,600. And direct labor, 1,800 and 9,600. All right, let's throw that into our calculator here. 4,500 plus 7,200 plus 1,800 gets me 13,500. And 5,400 plus 3,600 plus 9,600 gets me 18,600. So that's the cost in each department. I want to know total cost. So we need to add these two together. and I get 32,100. So this is total cost. But then it says, and we want to know what is the cost per linear foot. All right. So in order to come up with that, I need to determine the number of linear feet produced in job 399. And here it says, right, 5350. So if we take the 32,100 and we divide it by 5,350, what do we get? Divided by 5,350, I get $6 per linear foot. All right. So the key to working through this is just to very carefully follow the directions, right? That's really what this is all about. And to take note, especially up here at the beginning, of how are the various departments allocating their cost. If there's a specific approach that the problem lays out for you, then you need to utilize that, right? And that's what we did here. We determined those amounts and then use them in the problem to allocate overhead. If it doesn't tell you, then we may have to go through a process of establishing that rate and calculating it. But if the problem provides it, then we know exactly how that's supposed to be calculated. And then direct materials, direct labor, and direct overhead, or sorry, I keep saying direct. Direct materials, direct labor, and overhead are what needs to be included to come up with the cost in each line. And then if we need total cost, we need to add those two lines, or in the real world it may be 25 lines, right? Multiple, many steps to get there. And then finally they ask us to break it back down into a cost per foot.